If you're saying the same things that you were saying a year ago, you're probably missing a lot of opportunity because the market is not the same today as it was a year ago, right?
Right.
And we see this so often in proposals. There's no focus on doing this will help you in this way. Like, this is the value outcome of doing this. I would encourage everybody to kind of look at everything that you have going on in your business, and is your messaging up to date? Are your offers a nice to have or a must have? Do you have a compelling business case around why somebody should actually do this now and how it will benefit them and what the ROI, will be?
They said getting started was the hardest part, but no one told you how hard it is to scale a custom service business. It's time for your team to step up, but your clients want you. Discover how to scale to 7 figures and beyond by freeing up time and getting your team to run whole parts of the company so you can focus on scaling profits. This is the Hands Off CEO with Mandi Ellefson.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Hands Off CEO podcast. Today I have on the show Michael Zipursky of Consulting Success, and I'm excited to have Michael on the show. Michael, you've come on the podcast like at least a couple times, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe it's more than that. I know we've known each other for a good decade and been both watching each other's firm grow, having lots of synergies and overlaps. So excited to have you back on the show and to share what new changes you're seeing in the market. And why don't you, I'm just going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, what is Consulting Success about? Who do you guys work with?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Mandi. Always great to spend some time together. And yeah, at Consulting Success, we help consulting business owners build the business that they truly want. So we work mainly with 6 and 7 figure consulting business owners who want to build their consulting businesses in a more strategic and sustainable way, with the goal of obviously increasing revenues and profits, but also creating a lot more freedom and flexibility inside of their business so they can also have the lifestyle that they want.
Great. I love it. And, one of the things that we were talking about before we hit record was about the shifts that we're seeing in the market and how there is just these radical changes that are happening. And I'd love to hear, what are some of the changes that you're seeing in the consulting space? And then let's kind of unpack what that means for the whole market.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's 2 really big ones that I think are apparent to everyone, unless you've been, living in a cave or somewhere in the wilderness without any internet connection for a period of time. And so the first is just overall uncertainty. And the second is AI, and they go together, right? What's happening with AI? That's essentially like the elephant in the room. Everyone either, you need to pay attention to it. If you're not paying attention to it, the stories of people's businesses disappearing or their line of work disappearing, I believe is certainly going to happen, if not already happening. But at the same time, it provides immense opportunity. So I think that one of the big challenges with AI is that it's evolving so rapidly, developing so rapidly, that what we're seeing today is only like the tip of the iceberg. And I believe people will be astonished looking back at how things have changed. So part of that, and I think that the important part of that is that it can really cause a lot of uncertainty for people because they don't know necessarily how to navigate it, right? And when we look at AI and we talk to our clients about AI, and we do a lot of this at Consulting Success because we truly believe not that people have to become AI consultants, but we believe that every consultant needs to be an AI-powered consultant. And what I mean by that is you can look at AI and think, how do we apply AI into our own business, right? Meaning, how do you use it to streamline your operations? How do you use it to create more content or amplify content? How do you use it in your sales process? I mean, every department or area of your business, potentially there's an application of AI that can help you. And so that's number one. But number 2 is, how do you apply AI to the work that you do with clients, right? So you have also the delivery, which is important to think about. And then the third consideration, which I think is actually really important to mention, and not enough people spend time thinking about this in my observation, is what is the impact of AI on your actual client's business, right? Whether they're a nonprofit or a for-profit, whether they're big or small, there will be impacts, or likely already are impacts for them and for their business, for their, their employees and so forth. So you need to at least have an understanding of what's going on for your clients. Otherwise, it's going to be truly hard for you to be that trusted advisor or partner or somebody that they feel understand what they're going through. But because things are developing so rapidly, it means that there's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of people, it's like any situation, if you're caught off guard or if things are moving so fast, it's almost like you're a deer in the headlights of a car. You're just kind of frozen. And I think that is a really important moment, is that when people catch themselves feeling that way, like, I'm just so uncertain about what's going on, what should I do? The worst thing that you can do is do nothing, right? Because if people around you are doing something, even if it's 10%, it's 10% more than what you're doing. And so I think this is a time that people have to lean into what's happening in AI and really understand the implications and applications in their business as well as in their clients' businesses. And then just the broader one, Mandi, which I've already hit on, but I think everyone has seen and felt even before probably the kind of questions around AI came up, is the uncertainty. And that uncertainty is connected to what's happening in the world in terms of conflicts, wars, changes in governments, taxes, tariffs, like you name it, right? And it's not only about one country or one, one conflict or one situation. This is something it's like we're in a time where a lot of things are unsure or they're unsettled. And for a lot of people, that's scary. And so they tend to hesitate. They tend to think smaller. They tend to embrace more of a scarcity mindset instead of an abundance mindset, which I know, you're very familiar with. And to me, this is the exciting part, is it truly can separate or create a separation between those who will struggle to navigate what's going on. But if you have a plan and if you're open to exploring what's going on and then actually start to apply on it, this is where you truly can benefit from those opportunities and reach levels of success that others will really struggle to achieve.
Yeah, I think what you're pointing out some really interesting things here. One of them is this dichotomy between the people who are sitting their heads in the sand, or they're deer in the headlights. They're just kind of, they're looking at it. They're saying, well, you know what, I'm just going to wait until I have more information to make some kind of decision. And meanwhile, other people who are dealing with the same uncertainty, they're making decisions and they're getting feedback and they're continuing to move forward. So we are seeing this divide between the people who are doing nothing. They're really going to be left behind.
Correct.
And their fear is actually creating a self-fulfilling prophecy where they're going to really struggle.
Yeah. And the other thing, so I had a client recently say something along the lines of like, why are you guys talking so much about AI? And what I understood from this client and my observation is that they're scared and they think that AI is something that is going to take away or somehow diminish the expertise and experience that they have, and somehow it's going to take away the human touch. And I actually think the opposite is true, meaning that as AI continues to increase, or as the adoption of automations and technologies, the more that becomes mainstream, the more that humans will actually crave human interaction. And so I don't see that changing. I think like AI will only make humans want to connect with humans more, because we'll have even more technology surrounding us. Everyone's going to be already getting, like, we're all getting more emails, more LinkedIn messages, to the point that we're just starting to tune out on so many of these things. So what do people crave? Well, they crave going to an event, or like, I just mentioned to you, we just sold out our Montreal event. First time that's happened in this case. And I think a big part of that is that people want this connection. So things are shifting, right? And this is what business is about, is that you go back, I think probably everyone here has heard about the classic story of Blockbuster and Netflix, and how Blockbuster was too comfortable with how things had been, even for a very long time. And they weren't really open to adapting. They looked at the future and said, I don't think that's going to happen. But who here would have thought that we have essentially a computer, in our pockets, meaning with our phones? Like, no one, very few people knew that was happening. There's so many things that are changing in our world. And if we only allow ourselves to believe that what we've seen to this point is accepted and what's new is unlikely to truly develop, I think we're really holding ourselves back from the potential that we have.
And I think that's a really great example you used too, because Blockbuster actually had an advantage. Like they had
Huge.
a huge advantage because you could go in the store and you could have the mail in. And I used to love Blockbuster for this, and I was so ticked off that they went out of business because I thought they had the best. They had the best of both worlds there, and they really could have done something with it. But it's an example of the underdog that came in with a bigger vision,
Yeah.
and they were able to blow out the whole market. That completely reinvented the market, and AI gives us that opportunity to do that. But what I'm seeing is giving us the opportunity to get a lot more clear about the problems that we're willing to solve, and for who. Because like you said, there are all these industries now that are being impacted by AI,
Mm-hmm.
and those might not be the best industries to actually be going and doing consulting work for. They just don't have the budgets, or they're not innovative enough to keep up with the market. Or maybe you have a special opportunity to be working with them to be able to help them embrace it. That could be your superpower. Like,
Yep.
but we're seeing these things change, and AI is making many things that used to be very, very hard easy, and things that used to be impossible are now hard.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm seeing is that what are these problems, these impossible problems, these problems that used to be impossible to solve? When we go after and solve those kind of problems as consultants, when what we're actually doing is being able to solve that problem of uncertainty. Is that what you're seeing in the market as well?
I think, there's some things that right now are, you can't apply brute force to solving the problem. So what I mean, I'll give you an example. I mentioned we work with consulting business owners, and some are for-profit, some are in the nonprofit space. Well, we've heard from many clients that are in the nonprofit space, in the US especially, but also in other places in the world, that the funding that their clients relied on has, in many cases, just disappeared. So you can't go to that same, if you're a nonprofit consultant, let's say you do governance work or you do fundraising, you can't go to that same client and say, hey, like, I want to do the same work that I've been doing with you or with others, if they have absolutely no budget for that. So brute force can't work in a situation like that, right? What is required, in my belief, is that you have to evolve. So when you go to the market right now, one of the things that becomes very helpful is to identify, where can you add value, and where you added value in the past, it may not be where you can add value today, because many things have changed. So that, I think that evolution is really critical. The other thing that we've seen and we've talked to our clients a lot about is that when times are good, like, if you go back 2-3 years and there's a lot more money, let's say, flowing in the system, where people were more willing to put money towards different things. In the last kind of year or so, many organizations have kind of pulled back, and it's not that they don't have the cash, most do, but they are definitely being much more thoughtful, slower sales cycles. They're often wanting to do smaller initial engagements before committing to something larger. And so with all that being said, when times are good and money is flowing, companies will spend money on nice to haves, right? It's just like, let's add this feature, let's make this better. But in many situations or environments like we're dealing with today, organizations are only investing in must-haves. And so for a consultant or any professional services owner, it becomes really important to look at your business, your messaging, your offerings, and ensure that they in fact are must-haves, not nice-to-haves. And that means often building a business case around what you're going to the market. So it's not just like, hey, I do strategic planning consulting, or I do manufacturing consulting, or I do fill in the blank. That's a nice to have. Or like, we do facilitation, or we develop a strategic plan, or we do these workshops. Like, that's fantastic, but nobody wakes up going like, oh, I just can't wait to buy a workshop, right? What they want is the outcome that they get from attending that workshop, or that their employees get from attending that workshop. But even that may not be enough. You need to really make sure that the outcome that they will get is a top priority for the organization, and being able to build a business case around that is what can often separate somebody who really struggles goes to the market and tries to, move something through, and somebody who has a conversation and they may have initially heard, like I know many of our clients have heard things like the buyer saying to them, we don't have a budget for that right now. This sounds really great, but we just don't have a budget. But that's actually not true. Like there's no such thing as not having a budget, right? Most organizations have plenty of money. They just might need to reallocate it from different areas. And so the job of a consultant or, an advisor is to build a business case and show the buyer that investing or moving funds towards, like allocating towards whatever you're talking about, truly is going to create the most value for them. Like it's a must have. So that to me is a really big opportunity for people right now.
Right. Yeah. And that's a really big mindset shift for a lot of consultants is what I've seen. Right. And they're coming to the market and saying, we do this.
Yep.
Like, and it's very much, in a way, it's a little bit like labor arbitrage. And,
well, it's like commodity consultants, right? If the focus is just on here's what our deliverables are, here's what we do, well, that's great. But if you're doing the same things and if you're saying the same things that you were saying a year ago, you're probably missing a lot of opportunity because the market is not the same today as it was a year ago, right? And we see this so often in proposals where people's proposals will essentially say like, this is, in fact, I just reviewed one yesterday for a client. They're doing about $3.5 million. So they're doing well. But the proposal reads like, here's our deliverables. Here's what we're like. There's no focus on doing this will help you in this way. Like this is the value of the outcome of doing this. So that's just something that if people aren't doing right now, hopefully, and I would encourage everybody to kind of look at everything that you have going on in your business and is your messaging up to date? Are your offers a nice to have or a must have? Do you have a compelling business case around why somebody should actually do this now and how it will benefit them and what the ROI, will be? Doing this kind of an analysis or audit on your current business can help you to see if there are opportunities to make some improvements.
Yeah, those are really great points you bring up. And like you said, that what flew a year ago is not going to work now. And here's the thing is that I would say that a lot of the reasons why it actually did work had more to do with them having a steady stream of referrals because there was more money to throw around, right? People were actively looking for services, whereas now they're looking for solutions to painful problems, and you have to have a good use case, like you were mentioning, for them to actually even take your call, even to consider what you have to offer. So, one of the other things that I've seen too on this is that offering the deliverables and having proposals that are focused on deliverables oftentimes are because the CEO looks at this and say, well, you know what? We can't promise anything. We can't, we don't know how this is going to work for this companies. And every company is different. So how on earth can we offer an outcome? What would you say to that?
Well, I would say if somebody's thinking that way, either they've never done what they're proposing to do, because if they've done this work for a period of time, if they really are an expert, then they should have enough experience, case studies, testimonials, essentially proof that of the kind of results that their work can deliver. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone needs to provide a guarantee, as part of their program, although guarantees can be very effective and helpful in certain situations. But when you have a proposal, right, this is not legal advice. Generally what you're listing inside, you're saying this is the kind of outcome that can be created, or this is the reason why doing this will be beneficial. You're not saying that we're going to do a strategic plan for you, or we're going to, analyze your supply chain, and we are 100% guaranteeing that when you do this thing, you're going to see a 25.362% increase. Like most people are not doing that, right? But what you can say is, because you've done, let's say you're an expert in analyzing supply chains and finding ways to make the supply chain more accurate, reduce errors, and increase the throughput by or the velocity or volume by two times. Well, if you've done that multiple times, then you should be able to speak to that with confidence and say, doing these three things generally leads to, or doing these things will allow you to increase up to. So it's all about your language and selection, right? This is not about giving an exact and necessarily committing to exactly that, unless that's part of your agreement. But that's up to each individual person in the situation. But generally, it's about listing out, here's what we're going to do. Here's what you're going to get from that, a report, a workshop, whatever. And here is how this will benefit you, or this is what it will allow you to do, or how you will be better off than you are today. So that's incredibly important. And I would definitely, if someone's feeling some hesitation around that, talk to Mandi, or feel free to reach out, because definitely something that we can help you with to overcome and get clear on.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point. Like, if you really are an expert, why can't you deliver that? And if you can't deliver it yet, what I might recommend is maybe that's more of a reason to actually put together a guarantee. Like the times when I have put together guarantees and I really leaned into the guarantee is actually the times when I wasn't really sure, can we actually do this? And because the reason why is that I actually wanted the fail safe. I wanted to know that if I'm charging this client this big amount of money, I can feel good sleeping at night, knowing that that I could just give them their money back if we're not able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that when I put that on the line in that way, we were able to follow through every single time. And there were a few cases where I'm like, wow, well, you know what? You really don't have the right pieces, and we're just going to give you your money back because this isn't a good fit. But and this came from me coming from a very different place. I didn't come from this academic world. My first company, I actually had, it was a web design, graphic design company in branding. And I really wanted to stand for results. And that's actually what kind of got me into this, like this real outcome results obsession. Mm-hmm. Because I started it that way and I really wanted to do, and I didn't really know how to connect the dots. I didn't have all these case studies. Right. And where this really came into play was when I started what's now Hands Off CEO. I was committed to create this kind of case studies, but I didn't have these case studies yet. So what I did is I started beta testing, and I put my money where my mouth is, and I took the money first. But I said that, you know what, this is 100% happiness guarantee. That means there's no wiggle out. There's no wiggling out. You're doing it or you don't. And that's how I've launched just about every new thing in the business that doesn't have a really good use case around it. So I know it's risky, but you know what? Like, so is not having business, right? It's risky not having cash coming in. It's risky not having confidence when you're making an offer. And for me, that actually gave me more confidence. And you don't have to continue doing that. But I know that's another perspective on using guarantees. And we don't necessarily say you have to use a guarantee either. I'm with you on that. Yeah,
it depends on the situation, but it can be helpful for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you brought up some, what is a question that I haven't asked you that you might want to share about, with maybe changes the market, or what some consultants should be thinking about? This is your opportunity to get on the soapbox.
Yeah. I mean, you know me, Mandi, I could talk about this for days and days and days. I mean, there's so many things where we spend a lot of time is really developing custom plans for our clients. And this is one thing I talk about a fair bit, or I've done different articles or posts and linked in different places. And that's there's no one definition of success, right? And so a lot of people are trying to achieve somebody else's version of success. And what I mean by that is, we have clients who have 25, 30 team members, they're doing multi-millions per year. We have others that are a solo consultant. They're doing, between $500,000 and $700,000 or so per year as a solo consultant. In some cases, no assistant, and they absolutely have zero desire to build a team. Both of these companies and both these people are successful. So what I always like to do when I think about, what to talk about or how can I add value, it's really based on the person's situation, right? So that's like, we can talk about systems, we can talk about pricing, we can talk about, there's so many things that we could talk about that are necessary to build a business. But I think if I was to put a spotlight on one thing, it would be for people to stop worrying about tactics for a moment and instead spend a bit more time getting really clear about what does success look like for you. Because depending on what success looks like for you, your whole approach to that business is going to be different, right? Your business model will likely change. Your pricing strategy will change. Your overall go-to-market strategy will change. How you think about your role. Like, do you need to go from being a doer to being a leader? Do you need to understand how to build a culture, create a vision, get your team aligned on that vision? Do you have systems to scale? How do you hire a team? How do you make sure that utilization isn't like, there's so many aspects that people need. And one of our coaches that works in our Clarity coaching program, he often says to clients, when they are doing well, but they have a challenge, he's like, congratulations, you just up-leveled the quality of your problems or the level of your problem. Like, essentially you've moved up. So congratulations, you have a new set of problems. And that's, I think, what we really enjoy is we get to see kind of that a long life cycle in many cases. Like, we've had many clients that started off with us when they were just getting going in consulting. And then now a few years later, they're running multi-7-figure businesses and they have teams. And so there's no one right or wrong in terms of what success is. But again, I think too often people are focused on just doing the work, thinking about the tactics, like, oh, I need to be on LinkedIn, or I need to do social, or I need to do this. And somebody else taught this new AI course. Like, I definitely have to take that because if I do that, I can arbitrage this. And it's like, wait, okay, that's all great, but just get off the hamster wheel for a second. Give yourself a bit of time to get really clear about what success looks like for you. Because I've observed with many clients over the years that the ideal week, the ideal day, the ideal kind of lifestyle that people want to have, they often can get that and create that much sooner than they expect. But they're so busy right now that they're not actually clear on what they want. Like, they haven't defined it. It's not on paper. And then they've just kind of glossed over the steps that they could potentially take to realize that much sooner. So that would be one big thing that I would suggest to people. And then, of course, if there's anything more specific in any of those areas, we can kind of get into.
Well, no, I love that you said that, because that is actually the most important thing, is to know what you want. Because how do you actually know if you're on the right path to get what you want unless you know what you want? And most people know what they don't want, but they don't really know what they do want, because it really takes some courage to plant that flag in the ground and say, I want that.
Yeah. Or they know what they don't want, or they know what they shouldn't do, but they still do it, right? Like taking on that bad client, right? Or saying yes to a project that, you really shouldn't do, or not working on your business development or marketing because your client calls you or something else. Like, essentially you don't do what you know that you need to do or the business needs because it's the hard work, and instead you do the easy stuff that makes you feel like you're busy and productive but doesn't actually move the business forward. Right?
Yeah,
we've all seen that. So
yeah, we've all seen that. I think we've all been there, because it's kind of part of right. So Michael, where can people reach you if they wanted to reach out to you?
Yeah, consultingsuccess.com is kind of home to everything I mentioned to you as well, Mandi. We just put together a new consulting superpower quiz. So this is a very simple, short assessment. What we've identified is that there are essentially some very specific kind of archetypes or superpowers that consultants have. And if you've ever done a personality test and wondered or got your result and gone like, oh, now I get it. Now I know why I think that way or act that way or why I have these fears. We've essentially identified something very similar in the consulting space. And so if you want to know what your superpower is, as well as what your potential weaknesses are, and then how to strengthen them or how to kind of be able to achieve more success in a way that suits who you are, you can go to consultingsuccess.com/superpower. So one word, superpower. And that'll take you to a little free quiz that you can go through and get some results. So just another resource for people.
That sounds great. Thanks so much for sharing that, Michael. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and coming on the podcast. It was really a pleasure to have you back again.
Great speaking with you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hands Off CEO with Mandi Ellefson. If you want to work less and make more, make sure you subscribe and get a new episode every week, and help spread the word by leaving a review.